when you start out in a new league and when you're playing a like a new build, or you've got nothing in your stash, and specifically maybe you just don't even want to spend currency on crafting your flasks, the most common thing to do and the most generally accepted, especially like with higher level players, is you pick up every single flask of the flask that you want to craft on your way through. So if you want to craft, for example, I want to craft on divines. I've been picking up every single divine that I've seen for the first couple days. I stopped lately, but when you pick up all these flasks and you roll them, you can craft your flask very, very easily if you get lucky, and if you repeat this process over and over again until your flasks are crafted. You can pretty much craft it for little to nothing, almost free. If you go try to find something like a Surgeon Staunching, like a recharge on crit, remove bleed flask, that's probably going to cost you 5-10 chaos or more, especially because the person who has that probably knows it's valuable. And when you are crafting specifically for certain affixes, when you go to PoE trade to buy one, if you have the reason of crafting for that, for example, recharge on crit, remove bleeder, then it is almost guaranteed that somebody else and many other people have that same need, so that can be used to jack up the price. However, what I and a lot of people do is you use the flask recipe, as well as the ability to just roll flasks from white into blue into the recipe before having to actually spend any currency on it. And a lot of the flasks that you get in the process might be valuable for somebody else. So I'm going to do that with the flasks that I've gotten in this league. I'm going to bring out some augs and some transmutes as well. And so we're going to, like I said, craft on divine. So let's get a bunch of these out. There's a one that needs to be wisdomed. Alright, so I know I want like a remove curse, and maybe like a Fat Daddy remove cursor, and there's a couple other flasks that I am intending to get, but for the purposes of this, I'm just gonna go through and craft a bunch of them and remark on which ones are good and why. So let's do this one. Alright, so your flask can be blue already, or it can be white, it doesn't really matter. That guy. There we go. A remove curse, recharge on crit. We don't even want to roll that one. That one's a winner already. So let's set this guy here. But other than that, you're just transmuting, and you're looking for anything that's going to be useful to what you're going after. And for me, like so far, none of these have been good at all. Like nah. None of these are really that great. If this was recharge on crit, remove bleed, this is probably a good flask. Avengers is not the most commonly used prefix. That is the recharges when you take a critical strike. But for like tanky builds that are maybe max block, they could potentially benefit from this if they're not crit based. So this could be a good one. It's probably worth setting aside. That one's a cheaper one. This one's a little bit more expensive. It's probably like 1 or 2 chaos. This is probably like 3 to 5 chaos. Now saturated is really, really good. This is what I call the Fat Daddy, because it is the most amount of healing. It's long, but it's a lot of healing. So if you get one of this with just like the saturated, then it's worth the AUG. Now physical damage leeches life during flask effect is something that almost nobody's going to use, and they're certainly not going to use it now that leech is at the worst state it's ever been in since I started playing the game. So because of that, this flask is probably pretty useless. But instant recovery on low life is not really the most sought after flask in my opinion, because I don't use it and because I know a lot of people would prefer to have just a seething flask, which is the instant healer. It's not even worth wasting an AUG on. But if you are interested in having it, then maybe your life pool is very high. So let's say you have like 6,000 life. If you get below 2,000 life, you're going to be on low life, and that might be relatively okay for you, whereas somebody who only has like 3,500 to 4k HP in their build has to have this tiny ass little sliver of HP and quickly hit that, where if your life is very, very high in your life pool, this might be okay. but I'm not going to. So remove freeze is generally pretty good. Oops. Fat Daddy remove freeze. I don't think anybody is going to buy this, but if it's something that you specifically want for your build, that might be something you set aside. I might just set it aside just to have it. Now evasion's not the worst in the world, but generally you want evasion to be rolled on a jade flask, and you want armor to be rolled on a granite flask. So like a granite flask with this, a jade flask with this 95% evasion roll, and for example recharge on crit, is one of the more sought after utility flasks that you can get. Same with like a ruby flask that is remove bleed and recharge on crit. I have one somewhere, I'm not exactly sure where it's at, but for quicksilvers, your utility you're looking for is adrenaline, which is additional movement speed, which I don't know if I have any of the adrenalines, and then you're also looking for recharge on crit so that you can sustain it. Most crit builds prefer that, and a lot of people prefer to run, if not adrenaline, they want immunity to freeze or immunity to bleed, because when you have immunity to any sort of status ailment like bleed, freeze, shock, etc. on a utility flask, then when you pop it, like here, there's a chance to avoid being frozen on my Taste of Hate. That lasts no matter what. So like if I'm at full health, that's fine, it's gonna go that full duration. But here, this immunity to bleed on my Ample Divine Flask of Staunching is going to immediately like remove whatever bleeds are on me, and then I will be immune to bleeds until I reach full HP. And when I do reach full HP, I will no longer benefit from the immunity. The effect of the flask goes off. So if I've got 7 seconds here on this flask of immunity to bleed, and I hit full HP after 1 second, then the 6 seconds that I would have had are wasted, and now it's no longer applying to my character. So that's same for like this 25 additional like elemental flash reflex right here, like this guy right here, elemental resistance, sorry, on the flask effect. This goes off. Thanks, man, I just vowed it. But this goes off the moment that your character reaches full HP, and the same for a mana flask. If you hit full mana, then the flask effect goes off completely. So a lot of people prefer on their mana flasks to have a longer duration for a slower yield of mana. So you might extend, might get the recovers like a slower speed for more mana, and that allows you to continue to use your mana as it's refilling before it reaches full mana, and then the flask effect wears off. So we'll continue to just like transmute the last of these, which is pretty much all of them, right? They're all blue. Okay. So like these are all the ones that did not win. Let's get another one over here. This guy is not a winner. So we've got 5 of each set here, and if you trade in 5 flasks, you get 1 back. So you get 25% yield, or 20% yield on turning in your flask. And at this rate, if you're constantly picking up flasks, 1 to 2 or more per map is generally what I get, and you're just swapping them in, then inevitably you are going to hit the affix combination that you are after for free without having to pay chaos for it. And in the process of getting that, you're going to look at some of these that are like, okay, these guys are decently rolled. This guy right here will sell. You know what I mean? This guy right here might sell. This guy right here probably wouldn't sell, but is useful. So it's not 100% complete wash. But overall, you have a lot of potential to make flasks that people will want, especially early in the league. Like if you start putting up instant remove bleed flasks that are like instant or recharge on crit remove bleed flasks, that's seething staunching and surgeon staunching, those flasks are going to sell. You're going to be hounded until somebody pays you 5 or 10 chaos or more, depending on the flask. And especially if you quality it, then you can charge it much more for it. So we're going to go ahead and just trade these guys in, because none of these were very good. Alright, so we get 4 more tries, right? Not necessarily saying we're going to hit anything, but 50% increased recovery speed and remove freeze, meh. You know You know what I mean? Now here we go. Here's a seething, right? So this is a free chance at getting something good. 44% life to minions is terrible. Like, that's garbage, right? So we can go ahead and like hop over here, pick up this panicked that we probably don't really want. It's not even worth auging, and we can just continue to complete this process. And oh wait, let's give back our transmutes. And we'll continue to repeat this until we hit what we want, or we're forced to just craft what we want. So if you're crafting what you want, so this is the last portion of this, you want to bobble whatever it is beforehand. Let's go grab another bobble really fast. Sorry for this. I didn't expect to have to bobble anything. But the armor master guy, who deals with weapons and armor, sells baubles on the last page for 8 whetstones. So it's not the most expensive thing in the world. But you always want to quality your flasks beforehand, because it only costs 4 baubles to quality your flask right now. But if you were to magic it, then it will cost you 10 baubles. So it's just more efficient. And here, rolling for your flask affix combinations can be either really challenging or really easy. And this is adrenaline, and this is something that you want on the Quicksilver. We might actually craft the Quicksilver too. Let's see. Do we have any? Okay, we'll do a Quicksilver too. So I can show you what the utility flask would look like, the process of going through that. And you can continue to swap in, like, I could turn in these 5 jades, but the problem is I end up personally not picking up very many utility flasks and then just spending the currency to bobble them and roll them, as opposed to just like constantly getting like 1 or 2 jade flasks every few maps and being limited by the amount of utility flasks that I get to craft them. I prefer to just bobble them and go. And that may take some alts, and I might get lucky and, you know, craft one quickly, or I might, you know, get unlucky and it may take a minute. So I probably do want remove curse. I don't think I want extra charges though. Like a recharge on crit, stun recovery, wrecked. I'm not worried about remove. See, that would be perfect if that was recharge on crit. If that was not Avengers and that was like Surgeons, then that would have been a 5 to 10 chaos flask right there. I do want immunity to curse. Charge recovery is not ideal for my build personally. And every time you hit surgeons, alright, this is good. This is alright. Most people would prioritize either remove freeze and chill, remove bleed, or additional movement speed on a Quicksilver, and this flask would sell. So we'll go ahead and set this. So we got a winner. Alright, so I do want a saturated, and I don't know what I want with it personally. Probably want, not really sure. Wow, that's really nice. Sadly, like, I'm not armor based. This does nothing for me. It's not on a utility flask, so the armor will go off the moment that you hit full HP. But if this were on a granite flask, that would be the perfect granite flask. Like if I had just rolled this on a granite, that would be 100% perfect. It can roll 60 to 100%, I think, or 50 to 100%. So this would be a perfect granite flask in the event that I managed to put that on a granite. We're gonna throw a little bit more alts here. It's sad to see that go, man. That kind of hurts a little bit. Boom. Winner. We definitely want one of these, like no question about it. We want this flask. This is probably one of the core ones that I set out to craft. This flask right here, probably worth 5-7 chaos or more. You could probably like extort somebody for like 10 chaos. They'll try to pay 2 or 3 chaos. You can definitely get 5C for this. And if you look, like, we've spent like 25, maybe 30 alts. The problem is you can spend 30 alts or 150 alts and not roll this combination of mods, which is why people will pay for it. So there's like a prime example of this, like this is exactly what you want. And if you get this in the process of transmuting and auging while you're picking up flasks in your maps, or turning in 5 flasks to the vendor and getting 1 back and wisdom scrolling that, and then hogging that onto this, you can get a flask like this for free, basically, or for very cheap, and then you're profiting. And like 3 chaos here, 5 chaos there, 2 chaos there, for flasks that you're either not going to use or you know are valuable and just intentionally want to sell, is money to go in your currency tab. We'll roll one more. This one's already blue. I don't think I have any non-blue ones left. None of them are normal, so we'll just roll on this and I'll just bobble it if I have to. Now here's a half instant, and half instants can be very, very good. They give you a little bit of HP initially. In this case, you would get 600 HP initially, and then you would get 200 health per second. So that's pretty decent. It's pretty fair. Rolling this with a good combination of a good suffix is pretty valuable. Recharge on crit, remove bleeding, half instant remove bleeder are always really good. So if you get this guy, it's a full instant, a seething. If you get a half instant of seething, it's really nice. You can get a half instant of remove curse, half instant of remove freeze. So those are all like quite valuable. There we go. It's a warding. Instant on low life is not really ideal. Go. Boom. Jesus. There's another one. That's a winner right there. This is like a 5 chaos flask. Easy 5 chaos. A free 5 chaos. And like I'm glad we've hit like 2 good winners, because this one's going like yeah, this one's gonna replace this guy, that's for sure. And then I think I want a Fat Daddy healer here. So we're gonna go for we can actually just re-roll over this flask. This flask is not very good. So I have a few more alts. We'll try to get a boom! Yo, I'm on fire. You guys are watching. You guys see this. That just happened. Holy shit. Alright, nice. Nice. Alright, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this in the sales tab because that's getting sold. Damn, sweet. Yo, that just happened. Y'all saw that. I have witnesses. Here's our Fat Daddy. And dude. Yes, dude. Like, look, I'm doing the public service flask announcement, and I'm getting good flasks. It's meant to be. Panicked again, not that great. But you guys are more than welcome to like chime in chat when you guys you have any thoughts or comments. More than welcome to. All right, that's not very good. Here's another half instant. Meh. I don't really need to remove shocker. Catalyzed. Now catalyzed is just this flat 50% increase in recovery speed. It's not the best on a divine flask, but a catalyzed eternal flask is like the fastest HP regen per second available. So if you roll that on an eternal and it comes with a good suffix, then you've probably made money. Most people who heavily invest in flask bonuses, like for example, there's Flask here in herbalism, there's Flask here in profane chemistry, there's Flask up here in alchemist. I'll let the buyer bobble. Yeah, I'll let the buyer bobble. The bobble, if it's already there, is fine. But I'm not going to go out of my way to bobble it, because I might sell a bobbled one for only a chaos, sometimes even less than more than like a non-bobbled one, depending on the flask. Like if it's a seething staunching like this guy and it's bobbled, that's going to be like an 8 to 10 chaos flask. And if you don't want to pay me 8 to 10 chaos, that's absolutely fine, but I'm going to keep my flask. And for something like this guy here or this guy here, like the warding one, I'm probably not going to be able to charge very much more. But here it's important because 20% is more instant healing than it would be without the 20%. Whereas here, like, yeah, you're going to get a little bit more healing, but it feels very negligible, and the duration is increased on a utility flask, but the duration is not increased on a normal healing flask. So because the like ruby and such like that have a longer duration, there's more value in the baubled one there. And again, baubles are cheap too. So somebody's not going to pay you an arm and a leg. It's not going to be like twice as much for the flask, but you can maybe get an extra chaos, maybe 2 out of them, especially if they don't, really care or notice, in an effort to squeeze an extra dollar, especially early league. But we'll go ahead and just roll this guy. Immunity to freeze and chill, no thanks. Yeah, don't need something for shock. Don't need something for ignite. Charge recovery. So charge recovery is like an ideal stat for any build that is not crit based, because most builds that are crit based go surgeons, but charge recovery or perpetual is good for things like incinerate, which can't crit, SRS, which doesn't crit, ball lightning non-crit, arc non-crit. All those non-crit based builds will be happy with charge recovery. It may not outshine something like seething or saturated for them, but they might want 1 or 2 of their 5 flasks to have perpetual. So it's just something you can consider. And we'll close this out here. Maybe do another warding flask. Nah. No. Alright, here we go. Close it out on this guy. Immunity to freeze, recharge on crit. We'll keep that guy. Immunity to freeze, recharge on crit is just fine. So we got pretty much one of everything. We got a recharge on crit bleeder. We got a recharge on crit curse warder, or curse removal, and we got a recharge on crit unfreezy flask. So I think all in all we did okay. We got 1 flask left over to play with. And then I didn't roll any utility flasks, so I guess I could probably, I don't know if I have any more alts. No, I'm out of alts, I'm sorry. But for utility flasks, I could go over them very quickly here at the end to close this out. For Jade, things like Surgeons for recharge on crit, Reflexes is the like additional evasion, remove bleed, remove freeze, remove curse. All of those are very good because the latter ones, remove freeze, remove bleed, remove curse, they will stay on you for the entire duration of the flask, so the full 5 to 6 seconds, depending on if you've qualityed it or not. For the granite flask, the exact same, except replace the evasion percentage roll for armor percentage, because it's on the granite. A lot of people who go iron reflexes, which converts your evasion into armor, will like to run both a granite and a jade together. Generally that's on a crit based build, so it's going to be a surgeon's granite of like the, I don't know what the armor one is off the top of my head. And then jade is reflexes, armor, can't remember what it is, I'm sorry. I don't have any of these that have armor on them anymore. Sweet. Okay, perfect. I can't tell you. But Granite Flask, Surgeons with armor, and Jade Flask with reflexes will give you a serious boost to any like Iron Reflexes based character. It's absolutely insane. So that combination is really, really like common. The same for Ruby Flasks and Topaz Flasks and Iron Skin. Boom, nailed it. So Iron Skin is the additional armor bonus on Granite, or on any flask, but ideal on Granite. For Topaz, Ruby, Sapphire, Diamonds are, I'll point this out, I don't really roll Diamonds, but Diamonds cannot roll recharge on crit, because your crit chance is lucky, and for those who don't know what a Diamond Flask does, it rolls your crit chance twice. Whenever you go to attack a character, your crit chance is re-rolled. So if you have 50% crit, then and you don't crit the first time, it just flat out re-rolls your chance to crit again. So it just rolls double. If you fail the first time, then it'll roll the second. If you succeed the first time, then it does not roll a second, obviously. But this cannot, no matter how many alts you spam at this thing, you will not be able to put recharges on crit on here, because that would be so broken. So just make sure that you know that going in. A lot of people use this for characters that are crit based but low on crit, to help them like bridge the gap for a few levels, or for however many levels, and in an effort to ensure that their damage is more consistent. But Some builds utilize this in like end game for just mass DPS bursts. You might want to burn like the Titty Bitch and Trio first, or the last phase of Itziri, or whatever it may be, or the split phase, something like that. And you might bring a Diamond Flask along in order to help boost that damage and keep it more consistent. But on your utility flasks here, remove bleed, recharge on crit, remove curses, and remove freeze are very common because they will last the full duration of the flask effect. So most people appreciate having those on there. Some builds that are really flask dependent, you might be running like 1 or 2 unique flasks like Xeri's Promise and or Taste of Hate with Arumi's Concoction, leaves you very little room to run things like a Swiftness Flask and Resistance Flasks. So what somebody might do, and Health Flask specifically, so if you're running a Promise, a Taste of Hate, or Arumi's, and you only have 3 spots left, they might run 2 healing potions and 1 resistance potion, or 1 healing potion and 2 resistance potions. And in that case, somebody will definitely value having movement speed on their utility flask because they will not be able to take advantage of a swiftness pot. So it is very common, especially for people who run, for example, Itziri, to get a ruby or a topaz that has movement speed on it so that they can pop that when they need to in the middle of the fight with and get the the decent. It's not amazing movement speed. It's like 20 to 30%. It's not insane, but it is. I mean, it speeds you up, and they'll pop that in the middle of the fight as opposed to running a Quicksilver. So it's kind of like reducing a whole flask out of the equation and getting a portion of the benefit, and then still retaining the ability to run a ruby and a topaz on top of a health pot and 2 unique flasks. And last but not least, we'll cover the Quicksilver flask to close this out. But you've got your mecca of Quicksilver flasks is an Adrenaline Quicksilver flask, a Surgeon's Quicksilver flask of Adrenaline. Surgeon's is recharge on crit, and Adrenaline is additional movement speed. So you can get the perfect Quicksilver flask that recharges on crit and grants you a bonus of 70% increased movement speed, and you will haul ass through everything that you do. You will zoom, and if I was like better focused on this character that already has high movement speed, I would most certainly be using one of these 2 flasks to have like an adrenaline roll on it, because it is absolutely amazing. Like, it is sick. Here we go. That's a pretty good one too. Now, Iron Skin is not ideal on this. If this was on a Granite, this would be perfect, but this is probably sellable to a high armor based character. But I should probably roll one of these flasks. This one's pretty good already. So this is the recharge on crit, remove freeze for fights like Double Vows and Host. Anything where it's a Merveil, significant amount of cold damage that can constantly freeze and chill you. You can just run rampant through any of this stuff. It'll get you out of sticky situations, literally, and you'll be able to apply bleed in this spot, freeze in this spot, remove curse in this spot, and then benefit from having Surgeons, which will keep this flask constant, helping you keep the uptime of it up significantly. It is also really important to note, this is probably one of the more important things that differentiates the Quicksilver from everything else, is the bonus quality affects its duration. However, the duration on a Quicksilver flask is higher than that of its counterparts, right? So a 12% quality on this ruby flask here. It's just I'll buy 2 more baubles and show you the difference. I don't have enough whetstones. Okay, well, fuck my life. Well, I think this comes out to like 4.5 if I'm not mistaken, or 4. Do I have do I have any of them qualityed up? No. It's like 4 and some change. It's like, yeah, it's a little over 4. I want to say it's like 4.5. However, the Jade and the Quicksilver both start at the base of 5. So does a Granite starts at base of 4. So Jade and Quicksilver have the longest duration of status ailment immunity, which makes them quite valuable. 4.2 for 20%. There we go. Thank you very much. So this gives you like if you're immune to bleed or immune to freeze or immune to curse during this time, it allows you to do a lot more, like at least 2 seconds more. And then when you have, like I said, investments in herbalism, profane chemistry, I don't think profane chemistry really does much for it, but alchemists and stuff like that, the duration is increased, right? The effect of that is to increase. So you can get like swiftness pots that last like 9-10 seconds or more. So that gives you huge windows of status ailment immunity, and that is why builds will prefer to itemize or prioritize at least one important status immunity on their Quicksilver flask. However, they might prefer to do movement speed if they're a really high movement speed based build. That just is what it is. But like I can do this guy right here. Didn't get anything. I think that's it. But other than that, hopefully that like gives you a good general explanation of both what to look for on Flask, why to look for it on Flasks, how the Flasks are approached from the mindset of both the player and the build, and then a good strategy for accruing Flasks for free and rolling them for very cheap throughout the duration of the league. So that's it for me. I'm going to close off this video, and I'm out. Peace.